Hey guys, Nigel here with you, Nigel's Modelling Bench, and as you can see, this is going to be the start of yet another new build. Now, some of you who follow me will know that I've lost my mojo and not really done much modelling at all in the last, I don't know, 2 months is it? And basically nothing was really sparking me up. I did that silly little Toyota Yaris toy car thing. I'm working on the RC model, which is kind of alright. This model, when I saw this release and got it, this has really wetted my whistle. So I'm going to take all the abuse you can send, and I'm going to start yet another model because I want to get my mojo back. So this is going to be the one. This is the new Avro Vulcan from Airfix. Now, I've done a review of it. I've done a comparison review as well, which I was, people said that they'd be interested to see. And it really, as I said, it's really wetted my whistle, which is very unusual. So I'm going to make a start on this and get stuck into get the cockpit and everything. I think it should be a fairly quick build if we stay out of the box and don't start getting drowned down with, accuracy and this, that and the other. Now, straight away, one of the comments that someone has made, which I kind of agree with, they mentioned that the schemes are wrong. Because in the instructions it tells you that only this version can be built with the bomb doors open, showing the bombs. Well, this was the original nuclear bomber, and then maybe they were all built camouflage first of all, but generally I believe the blue steel aircraft were white. Now, there are images on Google of the camouflaged plane with the white underside carrying blue steel, so everything's right. But you could also build this aircraft as a bomber with the bomb bay with 1,000-pound bombs, okay, and the camouflage scheme. Now, I don't want to do the model all white because I don't like the look of it, and I don't really want to do the blue steel because I'd rather just have a plain bomber. So what we could do is build this as XH558, but then it hasn't got the right tail fit up here, but there is the right one in the kit. And as I say, this is where we get kind of, and this is where I think I get ground down with all this thinking about accuracy and should I do this, should I do that. So I think what we'll do is just build it out of the box, and then we can look at decal schemes, because I have actually got over here, I have got some aftermarket decals. So I could actually choose any one of these. They all look like they've got the earlier or later exhaust, or whatever it is. There's big and small. One's 201, one's 301, and the kit comes with both, but they call out the bigger ones. So, you Vulcan aficionados out there, tell me what to do. I want to build a bomber. I want it to be camouflaged. I want it to be grey and green on the top and grey or white on the bottom. You can see these are like a light grey underneath, and these are a white underside. But I want to build a camouflage Vulcan with an open bomb bay with 1,000-pound bombs in it. So please tell me from that one which I should choose. Thank you. Right, so we'll start this build with the cockpit. Now, what we should be doing is washing these parts off, and naughtily I'm not, okay, because I want to get on with it and it takes a while to dry. So I think what I'll do is I will start by just getting them off the sprues and cleaning them up. Now then, before we start, I want to praise Airfix again. I am not an Airfix fanboy by any stretch of the imagination. Please don't anybody think I am or accuse me of being one. I am not. I have criticised Airfix a lot in the past. But they do have some very good things about their kits. I mean, this nose weight thing I think is absolutely brilliant. The other thing I like about them, and they did the same with the Hellcat, if you look in the instructions, every single part here, there may be a clear part, but every single part is C. All right, every single bit comes off the C sprue all the way up to when you start on the wing spars. Now, why don't other manufacturers do that? We could basically get this sprue out, sprue C, shut the box, put it away, because we don't need anything else. Just this. It's brilliant. It's absolutely brilliant. Okay, you're fitting the clear part there, but we're not going to do that yet. But I think it's absolutely brilliant. So, yeah, well done Airfix, keep it up. So, what we're going to do is get this cockpit together and just get all of it built up and then paint it all black. The one thing I do want to do is paint that ladder yellow, because it's going to be seen when you look up through the access door underneath. So I'll paint that ladder yellow, let that dry, and then we'll pick out the steps in the black. because that's the one thing I do remember from going to the one up in the Midlands Air Museum. I remember the ladders were yellow and everything else pretty much was black. I don't remember going. I think the cockpit was closed off on the day I went. I don't think we could go up in the cockpit, but I do remember there being some yellow seat cushions and stuff. So these instructions seem to be pretty correct. The other thing is I've noticed in here, they would have you buying lots and lots of their paints. I mean, here you've got 103 and 24, and those two colours, if you look at these charts here, 24 is there, trainer yellow, and 103 is there, matte cream. Okay, don't go buying these paints just for that. If you've got some yellow paint, paint them both yellow, because honestly, for what you're going to see, you need to get some yellow in there so that you see something through the canopy window. But I don't think you need to start worrying about different shades of yellow on a seat which is this big, that's going to be viewed through an aperture which is about this big. So I'm going to get the parts off the sprues and then we'll start getting glued together. Okay, so first things first, I got the ladder off. That's going to go in the back. It's in the next page here. You can see it being fitted here. There's the ladder. So that's going in. That's going to be going in later. I've painted it yellow. I've used Tamiya lacquer paint LP8 because it's brilliant. It dries fairly quickly and it's very, very tough when it goes down. Yellow is probably the worst colour to paint. If you ask any painter, it's, if you could paint a red brick wall or a red brick wall, if you could paint it, you could probably paint it white with less coats of paint than you could with yellow. It's awful paint. So I've used LP8. It's available from Premium Hobbies. If you use my discount code NMB10, you'll get 10% off everything you buy from them. And they sell kits and paints and glues and everything. In fact, if you look at the comments, there is actually a bit of a country shortage on Tamiya Extra Thin. And somebody commented in one of my videos that they were actually burgled and somebody stole their Extra Thin. I mean, maybe it was their modelling shed they raided, I don't know. But the only place you could get it was Premium Hobbies. So it's worth giving them a shout. Have a look at their website and you know, you can save some money. So I've just taken the blade out of my knife and not replaced it. So this is the blade I need, a 10A. And just as a tip for you guys, it's worth, when you've got your blades, get an old jar or something like I do here, and I've got this marked blades, used blades, and then when that's full up I'll put it in the recycling. So anyway, and I'll write on there non-sterile. Right, so we've got our cockpit floor here. I've cleaned up the sprue nibs, and there we go, we're good to go. So we've got these panels here which are going to go underneath. I can't even pick this up because I don't have any fingernails. So this is going to go underneath, and that's going to go in like so. So it's going to go on the outside. It's going to go into that ridge in there, little slot in there. So grab some Extra Thin. I can't remember honestly the last time I opened this Extra Thin. So put some Extra Thin in there. Put that wick in. I'll get some in there. Drop in there. There we go. So that's our first parts glued. It's trying to lift away. So we'll get some of the quick setting in there. That'll dry a lot quicker. And I can hold that. If we get the other one as well, that'll also help it stay up, if you like, for want of a better term. My voice seems to be getting all squeaky lately. I don't know what's going on. There we go. I'm using the quick setting on there now to get it to go off quicker, so they don't pull away. I think I'm going to have to clamp that and let that go off actually, so I'll come back when that's done. There we go, that's all done. I just, basically to hold it, I just clamped it in this little Citadel vice. You get these little Citadel vices with like a suction base on them, and I just take the suction base out and put some nuts and bolts in there just to weigh it down, because it's a cheap, nasty piece of plastic. But a great little vice to have on the bench just to clamp stuff together really. So there we go, so that's that floor done. So next thing now is we're going to, looking in the instructions here, we're going to put the center console in. Now from what I've seen on video and stuff, this thing actually sort of rotates around to make it easier for them to get in and out. So we've got a mould seam down the middle of there. Now although we're not really going to see any of this in here, it's just good modelling practice to remove mould seams and sprue nibs and stuff. And another good way to do that, if you take some extra in fact we'll glue it on first. So just glue that in there like that. So that's just going to sit in there, so we get a bit of the quick set in. We'll just put a drop of that down in around there. Okay, and a good way to get rid of seam lines is to just get some extra thin and brush it over the top while it's wet. Once it starts to dry, stop, because otherwise you'll leave brush marks in it. But you can see, I think my glues all need topping up where they haven't been used so long, they've probably evaporated. So there we go, we can help to get rid of that. You can see there where that I've touched where I have my finger on the back, the glue is continued under my finger, so we'll just sand that away. So there we go, that's that centre console in. It still needs a bit of a clean up. We've got a bit of a mould mismatch, you can see on there, probably a bit of mould mismatch on there, and we've got a seam line down the middle. You know, as I say, we're not really going to see any of it, but hey ho. So that's gone in that way round. Now next thing to go in is the rudder pedals, and it looks like they're going to sort of slip into the back of this and then into those two grooves. So let's have a look. So that sits in there like that, and then they come down. No, I've got it upside down. Duh. So that sits in there like that. Just like that. Just like that. So drop in there, and a drop of extra thin in there. Simple as that, and they're held in place. One of my viewers suggested leaving the canopy off so you could have a look at this, so that's one thing you could do. Perhaps put a couple of pins on the canopy and have it pinned on so you can lift it off and look down in, because it is, you know, it's a nice little bit of detail they've put in here. And then this forward bulkhead's going to go on. We've got the ribbing we're showing there, you see the ribbing facing inwards, so that's going to go like that. And that's all going to hold together. Now it doesn't matter if we get the glue seeping through on this side, because that's just where the weights are going to go. So we can happily get the glue in here. I'm not sure I'm actually getting any glue in there. There seems to be hardly anything on the brush. But yes, it's glued on. So I want to make sure this is a nice strong joint, this one, because this is where your nose weights are going to be supported by. There we go. It's all or nothing. Do you see that great big drip come off the end of the brush then? So there we go, that'll capillary all around. That's whether you've got to be careful with the Tamiya when you are shaking it. If you shake it too hard, you can get what I've got here. You can see we've got a great big globule hanging off the brush. So that's what you've got to be careful of. If you drip that on, you know, if you're doing a little tiny precise bit on the outside, you're gluing an antenna onto a finished model, and you drip that right in the middle of your decals, then it's gonna ruin your day. Just brush some down in there. There we go. Right, so I'm going to top my glues up and then I'll come back. Okay, we're all topped up now, so we've got our Tamiya extra thins there, all nice. Don't forget, if you are having trouble getting Tamiya extra thin, there's always these are the Mr. Hobby Cement S and Set SP. This is basically your Tamiya extra thin, and that's your Tamiya extra thin quick setting. The brushes are slightly larger, which is great for bigger stuff, because I always find the Tamiya brushes a bit too thin. They're much better for stuff like gluing all this together, but then the Tamiya ones are much better for the smaller parts like the rudder pedals and stuff. So pays your money, takes your choice. There's also this one here, which is Mr. Cement Deluxe, which has got a great big brush, and that's really for sort of brushing on first if you're sticking armoured panels onto tanks or something. So I'm just going to get in here with my little Infini PE sander. It's just basically a piece of PE with a stainless steel photo etch with a Infini adhesive backed wet and dry on it. So that's that done, and you get a little set of them. You get all the little sets. There's pointed ones here, and there's one that's 2.5mm, 3mm. So that's 2mm, 3mm, and then there's also a 5mm, and then you've also got at the back a 10mm. So they really are well worth having, because quite often you're using little sponges and stuff, that would end up radius, whereas with this you can sand over the top and it will stay flat, because and if you want to make it really flat, if you just sand in one direction, then you're going to do a much better job. So there we go. So that's that all done. Happy with that for what we're going to see. Right, so we've got the front on now. We've got to do the instrument panel. It's telling us to put the decal on now. I'm going to paint everything first, so I'm going to paint everything and then put the decal on then. So we've got to put these little control sticks, joysticks, control wheels, I don't know what you call them, but they are basically like a fighter joystick, but they come out of the instrument panel. And a documentary I saw, it said they were used solely on the Vulcan. So there we go. So that's that one in. Just make sure it's nice and square. Doesn't matter if it's slightly angled over, because that's the whole idea, as long as they're both the same. And if you're really finicky, then make sure your control surfaces reflect the angle of the stick. There you go, that's that one in. Excuse me. Excuse the state of my nails, guys. Yes, I bite them and I can't stop. And I'm also restoring a Land Rover at the moment. If you want to go and have a look, Nigel's Land Rover channel on YouTube, go take a look at what I'm doing on there. So that's why my nails are a bit grubby. And I really should be out there working on it today, but I've just had some pretty awful experiences with a part I bought and fitted, which we talk about in the videos, and I'm giving it a rest for a couple of days because I've had enough. So right, so now this instrument panel is going to go in, so this is going to go onto that little triangular lug sticking up out the middle of there. So we'll just put a drop of cement in between here, and then that's going to drop onto there like so. And there we go. We'll give it a little nudge. There we are. Make sure everything's nice and straight, and it's really starting to look like a lovely little 72nd scale cockpit. Very nice indeed. Maybe Airfix should do a B-52. If they could get the shape of the nose right, I think they'd be on a winner. Right, seats. Got the two halves of the ejector seats. So I've taken them off the sprues. I think they're both the same. I should have checked first, shouldn't I? So we got that one there. Whoops. We've got, what have we got? That one there going to that one there. Come on, fumble, fumble. So that's that. Put some glue in the top. One thing that Airfix needs to do now, they've got this brilliant system of having a cassette in the nose for the weight. They've got the brilliant system of having all the parts for complete assemblies on one sprue. They seem to have got the plastic right, although I won't speak too soon on that one. What they need to do now is look at their sprue connection points, because this is where the likes of Wingnut Wings and Tamiya take them one step above. It's like on here, the sprue connection points were here and here. Okay, now they're two visible places. They could have put them there, and sorry, they were here and here, on the back and here. So the back is fine, but why did they put it on the top when they could have put it on the bottom? You know, they could have put it on the bottom. If it was a Wingnut Wings kit or a Tamiya kit, the sprue connection points would have been on the back and on the bottom. And sometimes it's very, very annoying because they'll put a sprue connection point right where you see it, and there could have been a million other places they could have put it, but they put it right where you can see it. So that's something they need to be looking at. Right, so they can go in and they can be left to dry off. I just wanted to see how well these seats are going to fit in. the seat cushions, and they drop in there beautifully by the look of things. Yes, they do. They drop in there beautifully. So very, very nice indeed. Okay, so we can paint those separately and then drop them after. So these can go in and just be painted black. So we can fit them now, like so, or they're a very nice fit. What we'll do is we'll fit them afterwards. We'll paint them black and then we can fit them afterwards. We can hold them on some little clamping tweezers to spray them. So that's that there. So now we're looking over the page and it's telling us to fit those seats. And then the next thing we're going to do is the side consoles, and there's a couple of fire extinguishers going in behind the seats. So I'll get those off the sprue and I'll come back. Right, going forward, we've got these side consoles that go in here, and I can see a whole load of trouble with them because they go in like this into these mountings. And as you can see, they could be anywhere in there. Now, what you don't want them is them fouling the fuselage and not being able to get the fuselage together, but you also don't want them too far in and fouling the seats and having a great gap down the side, especially if you're going to be leaving the canopy off. So what I'm going to do is temporarily fit this bulkhead on the back so that I can fit this into the fuselage and make sure that they are up against the side of the fuselage when it all dries. So what I'm going to do is just get a tiny drop of extra thin on here and put a little drop in each corner. Give it a few seconds just to dry. Okay, and that'll be enough to lock that in place. Okay, so we're not going to glue it on permanently because we won't be able to get those seats in if we do. So that's in there temporarily. So now I can grab a fuselage half, I can sit that in there, and it should sit in there beautifully. Like so. Should be enough. Let me get this off the sprue. I think that'll make life a lot easier. So that should sit in there like that, and then the rear half. Okay, so is it going? Alright, that's unusual. We're actually fitting this into the outside of these lines, not inside, which is unusual. Normally you'd be fitting them to the inside. So that one there is on the outside, on the top. Okay, so there we can put we can put that in like that and have it resting in there. There we go, that's better. Just like that, and it's a beautiful fit. Now what I want to do is take my side console, okay, put that in there like that. I've left a great big sprue connector on there. Look. I don't know why I'm making so much fuss, because no one's ever going to see any of this. It's crazy, but it depends. If you're building the model because you're enjoying building the model, then go to town. But if if all you cared about is the finished object, then, you know, don't even bother putting the cockpit in. Just paint the windows black, paint the canopy black on the inside, and no one will ever know the difference, especially if it's going to be hanging off your ceiling. There we go. So glue that in there. Now what I'm going to do is pull that out so I know it's too far out, and then I can slot this into the fuselage like so, and then I can nudge that over and make sure, yeah, that it's up against the side of the fuselage, so I know there it's in the right position. And I'll pull this away just in case any glue got on the fuselage, and then just put another drop in there just to make sure it's welded in solid, and we can also put a drop up on there. Okay, so that's that side done, and then we'll do the other side as well. So we'll cut this one out. And a lot of this stuff, guys, applies to whatever you're building, you know, not even necessarily aircraft, it could be anything. So again, I've left a big sprue connector on there. Clean that off, and then we will put this in here. drop of glue just to hold it in place, push that in. Make sure it's gone in properly, pull it out, and then we can put this into this fuselage half like so. Do, just like that. There we go, and then we can push that console over, make sure it's up against the fuselage. Yeah, and then pull it out. And we did get a little bit of glue, I just felt that grabbing, so it might just pull out. So what I have to do is repeat, because it pulled it away as I pulled the cockpit away. Nudge it over, make sure it's good and tight up against the side of the fuselage, and then pull it away. Here we go. And then we can put some more extra thin in there just to make sure it's locked. Drop in there. There we are. Job done. So we can let that go off. Get these fuselage halves out of the way. Right, and then we can add these little, oh, this here on the back. Now we should be able to just leave that and pull it off. But if you want to get it off, I've shown you this before. Just put some super glue, some extra thin where the glue was before, and it will wick around and you will be able to just pull it off like that. There you go. So, and if you're wondering where I did it before, I did it on a pretty major assembly, and it was, I can't remember now. But I did, that's the wrong one. I did have a pretty major assembly that I got wrong, and I wanted to take it apart, and I just literally soaked it in extra thin, and it came apart. And there we go, that's those fire extinguishers done. They've got to be painted red, so we'll pick them out afterwards. Now we're going to move on to the seats for the rear guys. I can't remember what they are. One's radio radar, and one's radar or something. I can't remember now. I'm sure somebody will tell us in the comments. The other thing I was amazed to find out with the Vulcan, which some of you may not know, the two seats here, the pilot seats, are ejectors. So the canopy would come away and the seats would be ejected out. These three guys had to open the door and bail out the bottom, and when they had an emergency situation, they had to get the seats turned around, and apparently they had like airbags in the seats that would push them forward out of the hatch. So quite incredible. Whether these are those airbag things, I don't know, or if these are rafts or parachute packs or what, I don't know. But certainly the guy in the centre doesn't have one. So unless that's on his seat, I don't know. But I'm sure someone will tell us in the comments, or I could find it with probably 10 minutes research on Google. It's nothing's that difficult these days, is it? The older ones amongst us like me remember when you had to find information like that out, you had to go to a library or buy a book or go to a museum, and ridiculous. These days it's just tippy tappy, job done. So we've got this centre seat, and that base part is going to go in there. So I'm just going to put some extra thin in there. So to prod it with, just prod it down. There we go, so that's gone down. I'm not very keen on the look of that, it looks like it's all bent. So, have I got the angle wrong? But my seat doesn't look much like that one there, does it? So I'm thinking that maybe this goes in. More like that. Yeah, probably that's it. So we'll just get some glue across the front edge. So that's going to sit in there on those there's four little slots in the floor. So to make sure all aligns, I'm just going to put it in there. There we go. So we've got all the four legs in their correct holes. and then it falls out. It's a tricky one, that, especially for the youngsters. Incredible detail on the back of the seat. There we go. So that's that aligned. We'll leave that to go off. And then here we've got two of these seats here. These are the outer two seats, and these are going to go onto these bases, just like that. And they're a far more positive, obvious fit. There we go. And then that one can go in there. It's quite a fun little build, this, actually. And that's why I need to try and keep it. It's fun. I'm not going to start worrying about photo etch and resin and God knows what. If I want to do that, I can get another one. Right, so that's those two. So those two are going to sit on these turntables here, like that. Oops. Like so, and then that's going to go in like that. So they've got their table there, just like the guys at the bottom of the B-52. Now, interestingly, make sure I'm not speaking too soon. Yeah, they've gone to all the trouble of fire extinguishers and the little frames on the seats and all the bits and pieces, but they've got nothing on here for any instrumentation. So you'd have thought they'd have put a decal in there, because if you do have the canopy off, you're going to see that. So maybe that's something that aftermarket will jump on. I'm sure Edard will come up with a full interior set for this, with belts and God knows what, and panels for this and everything. And you're not going to see it. So anyway, and that ladder's going to look lovely sat up in there like so once it's all painted black. So there we are. So I'm not going to glue those seats in yet. We're going to paint those separately. So going over the page here, what we need to do now is assemble this nose weight piece. So let's have a look at that. Okay, so if you remember in my review I did of this kit, I was really shouting and bawling about how fantastic this idea is. You've got this two-part nose that goes inside the nose to retain the weights, which is absolutely brilliant. But I would suggest one thing is tack it together first and just check it's not going to cause an issue, because we know the we know, look at that, it stays together on its own, that's lucky. We know about the Airfix Hellcat with the centre of the engine core, and many of you have bought my resin engine core, so you know we can't always trust Airfix to get everything 100%. So we're just going to fit this in here. I'm going to dry fit that on the back of there again. Hopefully, because it's had glue on it, it will have, yes, the surface has been imperfectioned, if you like, damaged. And now the parts will actually go together and stay together, so that's cool. I wonder if I could get those seats in there with that panel in there, because it would be a lot easier to just fit it. Yeah, I can get that one in. Yeah, that panel can be glued on. We'll get that on. So we'll get some glue around it. That's it, job done. Okay, and then what we can do is fit this onto here. Hold it together. We can put this. What are we doing now? Put that in there. No. Come on, Nigel, get your act together. That's going to go in like that. This nose has to go in here and into those 4 little slots, like so. There we go. And then we're just going to check that this is going to fit with no issues. Look at that. Now we have got a bit of a gap there, so that's indicating that maybe the instrument panel is holding it apart, but I can actually squeeze it together, so I'm not sure what's giving us the issue there. But it's a very good fit. That's all fitting lovely there, that's fitting lovely there. We got all this under here, this is great. but it can be clamped together, so I'm not going to worry about it too much. What we could actually do is come along and just literally, I've got a 220 grit sanding stick, I'm just going to sand everything because it could be the bulkhead, it could be the instrument panel, it could be this core, anything that's holding it apart, and we're going to make sure we don't have problems with the fuselage fitting in there, because we just don't start sanding it all after it's painted. Well, after it's painted we want to take the paint off the edges, because if it is that good a fit, there we go, we can see that bulkhead is sitting higher than this part, so maybe that's what the problem is. So just take a little bit, I haven't gone mad, it's just taken a little bit of it away. Get it back together, get it in there like so. Go on, you know you want to. There we go. You'll know when it's in because it is a very, very positive fit. It's beautifully designed. Yeah, it's still holding apart. Now there are ejector pin marks in there, so I'm going to get in there with a coarse skinny stick. It might be them that are doing it. Yeah, we got one that's quite a lump on that one. So obviously in my review my suggestion was valid. Okay, felt like going with a click. There, this one's going to go over the top. That's much better. Now I'm just literally, that's a very light finger pressure and it closes that joint up. So I'm happy with that. I'm just going to take a little bit more off the top of that instrument panel, I think. Because I have a feeling it may be that that's pushing us apart. Well, it could be all of it. There we go. There we are, happy now. Just try these fuselage halves together without anything in there and see if there's a gap. It could be that it's just that the fuselage halves no, you see that's gone together lovely. There is something just holding them apart. So what we'll do, once again, put this in here, grab a hold of it, just remove some plastic. We can drop that in there. Then drop this half on the top and I reckon now we'll be good to go. There we are. So it obviously is this nose section, this section here is holding it apart. So I'm going to grab a coarser stick because the finish doesn't matter because no one's ever going to see it. And just remove some material from here and do the same on here. Go right over the top. get that into there, and hopefully this will be the last time. No doubt you fast forwarded this because you're bored, but there are people out there that need this kind of stuff to help them through. Right, there we go. Okay, so my suggestion in my preview was valid. Whoops, daisy, I've just dropped the cockpit on the floor. I'll make sure I don't roll a chair over it. Oh dear. Luckily it's okay. Just check the alignment of everything again now that it's been thrown around the floor. Okay, so that's gone in, that's all good. Yeah, what we can do is try this fuselage half. And we can see that it is actually this bulkhead that's holding us apart now. I think it's actually all of it. All of it just needs a little gentle sanding or some very heavy clamping. But the reason I want to get it so it just stays together on its own is because if you clamp it heavily and glue it, over the years the glue kind of goes off. We've all seen it where the armament's fallen off the wings or something of an aircraft and stuff like that. And you start to, if a joint is under constant stress, you start to see splits and stuff appearing. So it's good to try and have everything so it's just staying together naturally. Oh, come on. Done this enough times. There we go. All good. So, bit off of there, bit off the bulkhead, and you're good to go. So we'll get this glued together. Like so. Plenty of glue in the joints, make sure we get a nice weld in there. There we are. And then what we'll do is glue this onto here. Ah, no we won't. Got to put the weight in there first. Made you go, no! Didn't it? I know it did. That's why I did it. Right, so got a bit of a gap there. So obviously wants to be pulled together, so we will grab a rubber band. Should have found something a bit longer really, shouldn't I? Because this isn't quite long enough. Go. Let that just dry. Okay, so now look at it, nose weight. This is for the newer modelers out there. There's all sorts of things you can use. You can use a lump of putty or something, or not putty, but blue tack, something like that. You could use plasticine. I would advise against using putty because it's full of oil. It'll probably dissolve its way through the plastic. But by far the best thing to be using is lead, obviously, because it's very, very dense. It's very heavy. You could use a bit of old lead sheeting. Okay, you got that. You know, you probably got a bit lying around out in the shed or something. There's some here that I've put into the front of a Liberator. Never throw your lead away, no matter how small the bits are, because it always comes in handy. You'll often find it with certain model aircraft. You're left with tiny little gaps down the side of cockpits and stuff you put weight into. So these little slithers that you cut off like this, you know, don't throw them away. Always keep them. You know, with this, for example, with this one, I could just pour that in there. Job done. Now the instructions are saying 40 grams. I always go over, so I'm going to see if I can get up to 60 grams. Okay, it's. I would love to put 40 in there and then find out that we're okay, but I don't want to take any chances, so I'm going to go with 60 grams. So here we've got some old car wheel weights. These are actually used ones. You can see the brake dust all over them, so they could go in there because it doesn't matter once it's sealed in. It doesn't matter, and that is actually, look at that. That's 50. I don't know if you can see the scales on the camera. That's actually 57.8 grams, so that would be perfect, just that one strip. We've also got all these this lead in here, and the way to do this is to grab an old paint jar, put that on there, press tear, so that zeroes it, and then you can see in there we've got 27 grams, so there's not enough in there. On off, sort of reset, so you could press the there again. And then that one there is exactly 40 grams. That one there is 50 grams. So you've got the numbers written on there. It gives you an idea what sort. I mean, that little lump of lead there that's 278 grams. So you give you an idea how much lead you need. And that little bit there, that would probably like 2 inches square, and that's 40 grams. So there you go. So there we are. So I'm going to use this, and what I'll probably do is chop it up, drop it in there, and then we'll put some araldite in there. Don't use white glue, because white glue and the lead can react and could do something funny. I don't remember now what it actually does. I'm sure someone will tell us in the comments below. It's not good. Oh, the other thing to do is use these little balls. Now, I'm not going to waste these little balls on this because this is easy. As I said, with a lot of models, you end up with lots of tiny little places to put it in, and you can often just drill a hole and put these balls in. So if we did need more weight in this nose, we could drill a hole underneath here, put more weight in, and then fill the hole up. That's always another good thing to do. But these little balls, you can see, they're just basically lead shot. But they're really, really good for doing when you need, very small amounts, or you've only got tight places. Like if we were just able to put weight in around here and stuff, we could glue the cockpit in, drill a hole through there, and fill those cavities up with balls. But when we've got it like this, we can just chop this up and drop that in there. So that's what I'll do. I'll chop this up, drop that in there, and get some epoxy in there. So I've got some Gorilla epoxy here, 5-minute epoxy. This is in one of these special dispensers that dispenses both at the same time, and usually the darker colour one goes off. So if you just push on that one, you will get equal amounts of both. If you push from this side, you end up with less of the darker one. As it gets older, the darker one tends to thicken. Make sure we get this on the right way, and then so it comes out slower. It's less viscous. Sorry, no. The higher the viscosity, the thicker the number, the thicker the material. So I don't know if that's more viscous or less viscous. Whatever, somebody will tell me. That's the one thing about YouTube, you get one word wrong and the whole world tells you all about it. It's great. Okay, so we just mix that up like that, and I'm just going to pour that into there over the weights. So I want to make sure it's never going to fill it up, but I just want to make sure that we do get some on every bit so that it sort of forms a coating, like a skin if you like. It will keep the lead in position, and at the end of the day, if it does come loose, hey ho. So we'll tip it up sideways, tip it up that way, and just make sure we've got the coating of it everywhere, and then that will actually lock it in place. Okay. And I don't want to get this stuff on my modelling bench, so I'm going to pick that up quickly before it runs its way down. There we go. Give that 5 minutes to go off. I might even put some more in there because this is going off anyway. So in fact, I'll mix some more up and I'll pour some more in, and I'll come back when it's done. Just another quick suggestion, guys. Something I would do before the epoxy goes off is just check the fit on your bulkhead, because with the weight in there, this is quite thin, this plastic, so with the weight and everything in there, and all the epoxy, it may actually pull it out of shape, but that's fitting in there lovely. So I know it's not pulled it out of shape, but you don't want to find it sort of gone like this and then it won't fit in. Although you can always just sand it to make it fit, but if it's gone a long way, as you can see, it's quite easy to distort. So right, we'll leave that to go off. 5 minutes it should be, and then that'll be that. If I start to feel any heat in it, I'll go and stick it. In fact, I am feeling some warmth. I'm going to go and stick it in a cold, just in case it starts to melt the plastic. Alright, there we go. It's all gone off now, and it's not solid, but it's fairly firm. I can prod it with the end of a paintbrush, and it's not marking it. So there we go. So that's good. I had it stood in a jar of water, and it's just taking the heat out of it while it exotherms. So job done. That's Gorilla epoxy stuff. Very good stuff. This is every bit as good as Araldite. So worth having some in your arsenal. Right, so there we go. So put that lid back on there. That bottle's quite warm. So our water, clean up our mess. So this can now get glued onto here, like so. I wonder if you can actually put it the wrong way. No. It only goes one way. That's good. So it's foolproof. Bit of engineering there. So I'm going to use this Mr. Cement Deluxe on here because it's got a thicker brush, and it's thicker, and it's very, very strong. So you just brush this on here as like a primer, if you like, and then stick that on there like that. Okay, and then we can go around here and let it capillary in, and then we will get a very nice, very strong joint. And that gives us then something to hold the cockpit with to paint it, and also we can stand it up like that. So very handy tool, very good little thing to have. So there we are. Okay, so there we go. Just a quick thought. I've just drilled a little hole in it there, just to, while that epoxy's curing, if it's got any gases or anything building up. I don't know what's going on there, so I thought I'd just drill a little hole, let any gases or anything escape. So basically, yeah, we're going to wait for that glue to go off, and then I've just fitted in there again, and my little gap has come back. So we're going to do some more sanding around here, get this all nice and flush, get it so it fits in there beautifully, and then I'll be back for part 2. So we'll call it a day for part 1. We've pretty much assembled all the cockpit. Next bit now is going to be actually gluing it all together, but before we do all that, obviously we're going to paint it. So I'm going to paint all of this probably in LP5. Is it LP5 or LP3? Hang on. LP3 is flat black. I will probably paint it in LP5. It's a semi-gloss black, and it's great because it's hard wearing, so when you start dry brushing and stuff, you don't start rubbing it away. And if you don't want to start going in with primers and stuff, it's great just to put this on because it dries rock hard. So we'll go in there with LP5 first, and then we'll pick out the little bits and pieces of details. We'll put the decals on, we'll do some dry brushing, paint up the seats. And as I say, you know, there's going to be those out there that are going to be commenting, what's the bloody point, you can't see any of it. It's just for the fun of the modelling. I mean, it's like these cushions on the front of here, whatever they are, they've got to be painted khaki. You're never going to see them, but why are we doing this? It's for modelling, it's for fun, so we want to have some fun. So that's why I'm going to do it. I also might do some filling in there, because although those cushions may cover it all up, there's a bit of a gap down the middle of there. I know the cushions completely cover it, so maybe just do some sanding over the tops just so they look a bit better. But there we go. So that's going to be it for part 1, and I'll see you very, very soon for part 2. I'm going to basically let this dry off, take Jess for a walk, and go from there. So thanks for watching, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now. Keep my spirits up, guys. Give me loads of positive comments and keep me going, you know, because you know what I'm like. I kind of get into the model and but I'm looking at this, and it just all looks like a lot of fun, building up all these strictures and wheelbays and stuff, getting it all together, and then it's done. You know, we'll get some paint in the bomb bay, we'll get some bombs in there, and it's going to be a lovely model, and I think it's going to be a very quick build, and I need to keep my enthusiasm going. I don't want to lose my enthusiasm for this model and modelling in general, so please help me out, guys, and I'll see you soon. Thanks for watching. Bye for now.